Welcome to the Be Amazing podcast. On this show, we'll give you the fuel you need through motivational pep talks, the fitness tips to be your healthiest self, fortitude to push through the hardships, and focus you need to build the skills needed for the next level, no matter what that looks like to you. I'm your host, Seal Smart. I'm a wife, a mom, community leader, and fitness professional of over 18 years. I'm here to be your biggest cheerleader, advocate, and connector. Let's be amazing together. Podcast. Today is my guest, Heather Graham, Dr. Heather Graham. Let me correct myself, who is from Premier Gynecology. And I'm excited you're here because we did a podcast in 2020. That's when I met you. Yeah. And we had this big photo shoot and you showed up in a wetsuit.
That's kind of how ridiculous I am. Yes.
But I love it. And we went paddle boarding. We were just reminiscing a little bit about how we know each other. But I really want everyone to get a real sense of who you are. So share a little bit about yourself, your family, your hobbies, all the things.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me because I've loved getting to know you for this last half decade because as everybody knows that listens to you, you're so passionate about women's health and sort of, just hormone health and all that stuff that obviously I play a role in too as a physician. But yeah, I'm an OBGYN in Charlotte. I've lived here about 11 years. I moved from Los Angeles before I was here, but I am not an LA girl, though I did love it. I grew up in the other LA, which was Lower Alabama, in a town of 8,000 people, really teeny. Then I've lived in one of the biggest cities in the country, which I would have never thought, I would have done. Been a doctor now for always time it by how old my oldest kid is because I have two boys and I'm a single mom, but he's 13 and I graduated residency when I was pregnant with him. So been practicing, I guess, independently 13 years by his age. And then, a little doctor for 4 years before that, but in training. So but settled back in the South, been here, have two crazy wild boys that are now 10 and 13. See, also mine were little. I think yours were starting to get older when we talked, but boy mom life is a different life. It challenges you in ways you just have to roll with and get a lot less neat and clean. And they keep me very active and busy too. So, which doesn't leave a lot of time for hobbies, but, we connected over paddle boarding because I just growing up in Alabama, I was actually closer to Florida. Just love the water, love being on the water, near the water, on the boat, whatever. And so my hobbies kind of usually center around what can I do near the water. So as your kids get older, I think you start worrying about what you're going to do when even now with teenagers, don't need you as much, don't want you as much. What do you do with yourself? And so, I wanted to have my own life as they sort of grow up and I fly them from the nest. And so I took sailing lessons this last summer and I'm excited about that becoming
so cool. I did not know that.
A longer term hobby, like paddleboarding in certain environments is something I think you can keep up with even when you're older. But sailing, it's cool. There's an older community. It's cool to see what your life can look like in retirement and kind of around and crouching on boats and things like that. You can still do well until your older age. So I've met a lot of cool couples doing that. It's been a lot of fun. So anyway, that's me.
Oh, that's so cool. I knew you'd tell me a fun fact. I was like, she's going to tell me something I don't know. And the whole sailing thing. Awesome. Yeah. And that says a lot about talking about lifelong hobbies and going back just a minute about mom life and when your kids leave, going ahead and starting now to set things in motion so that you have something once they are out of the house. I had another conversation with somebody else recently that was saying the same thing. They're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I should have started this before my kids graduated high school. I should have taken the time for myself to figure out what is good for me and to go ahead and move in that direction. Not that you're trying to get away from being mom and doing all those things, but really having something that's yours and starting now. You don't have to wait till they go to high school to find that. And I think
Yeah,
a
and we
lot
say
of women
moms,
struggle.
like seeing patients at, so I guess the typical age, your kids move out, you're 50, you go through menopause, it's just everything at one time that just hits you. Your parents get older, they become like your children. It can be a very disconcerting time in life. And you and I have our own journeys with our earlier symptoms that you've probably shared a lot, I know, but, and we've talked about, but, yeah, even without kids, I feel like, there's women, same thing, you devote your life to one thing, whether it's kids, career, and then that starts to evolve as you get older. And then what do you do with yourself is sort of like an identity. I mean, it's part of the midlife crisis, I guess, is the identity crisis of what to do with yourself. And so, yeah, like having the foundation of you is important, which I think we get with children. You get very swept up into that postpartum with just becoming the mom, the fixer, the healer, the everything, like in the family, and you lose yourself as a woman in that process. And then you kind of rebuild, I guess, like in these later years, sometimes not until very later in life after you struggle. But yeah, this is good. We talk about it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
a bigger
and look different.
conversation for sure. And I think you being a doctor and also going through some of the things that you're being challenged with now,
Yeah,
I think is super helpful because I really do think women carry a lot and don't always acknowledge like, no, I need
yeah,
to think about me and it's okay to be what you would consider selfish, but not really,
sure,
so I
sure.
think this is an important conversation and it really, I want to let this lead us into talking about the journey you're on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now you're in the middle of, you've faced a physical challenge, which is something you
Yeah,
dealt with early on in life, and then it's
yeah.
back again. So kind of tell everyone what's been happening, what happened to you at 13, and then fast forwarding to where we are now in the second
Yeah.
phase of that.
Sure. Yeah. So I have scoliosis. It's common in women. Usually it's called idiopathic, meaning we don't know why. Like it just happens. It doesn't seem to be genetic. Women seem to have it more than men, but or boys, but they can have it too. So yeah, I had no symptoms. I was active, like doing gymnastics and basketball, and they just do the screen at school and they were like, "Hey, you failed the test." And that sort of led one thing after another to finally them being like, you need corrective major spine surgery, like asymptomatic. I can't imagine how horrified my parents were now with like a child and even being in medicine, like, like what they faced and, whatnot. But with your kid going through a procedure, but actually it sort of created my love for medicine. That's what I count to like why I became a doctor was my early experience. And I think a lot of physicians have that some sort of experience if their family members aren't doctors and mine aren't, was like I was just sort of thrust in this surgeon's office that started showing me all the things he was going to do with my spine. And weirdly, that's probably my weird thing, but just, it didn't scare me. I'm sure I was to some degree, but I was fascinated by it. And then ended up going through, so I got fused from T2 in your vertebrae to L2, which is basically like most of your back. So that just created challenges for me as a young athlete. I was told I couldn't do gymnastics at that point, which I wasn't just totally in love with, but my personality is one like, what do you mean I can't? Like, so
Right. Don't
that's
tell me I
fine.
can't do
Okay.
it.
I have metal in my back. I guess you're saying it won't bend. So fine, no back handsprings. But I was playing basketball and petite, tall, but petite. So like I got shoved around on my butt a lot. If for girls that play basketball know how that is, it's pretty rough. There's tall girls out there. And I wasn't, I think I could shoot decently, but not particularly suited to throwing my hips around, though I tried certainly. But I went back to that after. It was challenging. It was a tough surgery. I was young, I didn't understand a lot of what was happening. But you're young, like anybody around kids see how fast they heal. So it was different. And I was told, go live your life. You'll never have to worry about it again. You're fused, that locks it in place. And that was what they thought. That was 30 years ago, like 31 to be exact. But, and so, yeah, I've lived my life. I got back into sports, but I did have to accommodate to having a rod in my back, basically, that wouldn't bend. I had some issues like studying, like because I can't hunch. Like, so it kind of became relevant in med school, like sitting at a desk, just studying at all hours. But then, of course, I picked to be an OBGYN, not someone at an office job. So I get in contorted positions for most of my life, like delivering babies and operating at all hours of the night, and had some degree of discomfort, but that was just sort of part of the new back and sort of how it moved in my thought process. And so they didn't really monitor you. And then I kind of got out of OB and into gynecology, and that's where I am now, as you mentioned, Premier, and do more just all gynecology, the other half of our field that you spend most of your life in. And that was easier on my back. I think some of those symptoms went away, and then they progressively were coming back. It was less pain and more having sort of like a hunched posture, like I was much older than I was after standing up. In my 40s, I had sort of a change. I got divorced. My mother passed away from a terminal illness, just sort of back to back. So I really dove into sort of physical health as a way to manage stress. And because I was like, I'm a single mom, and I remember moving and being like, I am too weak. Like, I need to be stronger. So I really dove into strength training and some of these things we talk about being so important for women, for our bone health, but just, just literally strength and feeling good. I had let a lot of that slide, like a lot of us do in our 30s with career and kids. And so, yeah, I just sort of found myself in a situation exercising where I'd gotten over that hump we all do when you first start back, where it's really hard and you don't want to do it. Then you sort of start loving it. The runner's high and running, but there's sort of a like training high too, where you like really enjoy what you do. You might grumble throughout the workout, but then you think about it later, you have the good sore in your body. And I'd gotten there, and then suddenly things were getting worse and it didn't really make sense. So that led me to get an x-ray and see my lumbar spine was still trying to become curved, and then I needed another fusion. So at 40, what am I, 44, it's like right before Christmas, I see like sort of how disgusting my spine looks, and thankfully had people to cover for me and patients that understood that I'm a human like anybody else and needed to prioritize that. And the only way sort of over it was through it and just to get it done and get back. So I had that done January, and then have been at home recovering and dialing back in, and got back to work part-time a couple weeks ago. And yeah, challenging. It's different as an adult, not in a kid
Yeah.
body, but
And I
easier
think,
in some ways too. So yeah.
and with that, I would say, like, going back, like the fact that you even said that, like that
Hmm.
your patients recognizing that you're human too. Like, even though you're a
Yeah.
doctor and you're still facing your own physical
Yeah.
challenges, and then just hearing about what the challenges you were dealing with, like you said, divorce and losing your mom to an illness, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden now you're faced with the physical challenge of your own body. How have you
Yeah.
maintained a positive outlook? Because to me, that's a lot on one person. Like, that's a lot
It
for
is.
human. That is so much for one person to take on. So, like, how have you
Yeah.
maintained such a positive attitude?
Yeah. I think I'll say probably my mom's illness. My mom had ALS. And so that's one of the most devastating illnesses you face. I mean, everything's challenging. Cancer is awful. ALS, for people that don't know, just you progressively lose all muscle function in your body, like muscle by muscle. And so, in the really probably most awful cases, you could say, like you lose the ability to walk, talk, and then breathe, like, and but you're still there fully. In my mom's case, it was very rapid. So from diagnosis to her passing was less than 2 years. And in some ways that was a blessing, because her suffering was limited to that shorter period of time, because you lose all sense of self. I mean, if I could think in medicine, one of the things most of us say we do not want to get is ALS. But my mom remained so hopeful, not necessarily for a cure because it's incurable, but just that wasn't it for her. That ties into faith a lot, and I won't get on a bandwagon of that, but it really solidified mine, because that's one of the worst things you can face. And so divorce is very hard. Death is very hard. Losing your mom just unearths you. Like, that was losing her was probably, I hope, the worst thing that ever happens in my life. But it
Mhm.
really rooted me. You know, your mom passes on stuff to you, and I feel like she did, just in terms of things can be bad, but there's always like the other side of the bad. And I think we see that in any challenge in life, whether it's work, an illness in your kid, moving, you know, there's a hard time, and then it's not as hard anymore. Like that, you know, with mental health, I think that's a common phrase. Like it feels like you'll never get better, and you have to just believe it won't be like this forever. Because there's high seasons in life too where you're deliriously happy, and it sucks to stop in those moments and think like it's not always going to be like this either. But that is life. I think that's the lived experience you get to maybe middle age. Those of people that get there sooner, sometimes later, you know, is in some ways a blessing, because you learn it just ebbs and flows. So I think I've tried to take that approach. That changed me. You know, certainly you can pity yourself, you can do all those things I've done my life, and I certainly have had a little pity party here and there. But that, and then as a mom, my kids, you know, like they needed a strong mom. They needed somebody to show them how to live life, you know, and so I'm trying to do that for them, although imperfectly. So, because we all are. But
Well,
that's how I think I stay grounded. Yeah.
yeah, you've been such a light on social media. Like I've been following your story and following what's going on and what's happening. And I remember we text briefly um uh over DM messenger, all the
Yeah.
things. But it was like a brief message, and it would just, I don't know, just I could just tell, like in the, even just when when you're like telling your story, and then just even
Hmm.
your messaging to me, like I had no idea the depth, or all the things that have been happening, but like your positive spirit, your light
Hmm.
was so, like so
Thank
evident.
you. Yeah.
And and to me that's like, we all need that. Like everybody, and not to say that like you don't have down days or you don't struggle, but
Yeah.
just to
Right.
know, like hearing you say it, like, yeah, I've had my days, but this is what's carrying me through. I think we all reach those places where we just need to be, encouraged and supported.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
even if they don't know you, like your story may help someone that's going through something themselves,
Yeah.
and they just need to know they're not
Yeah.
alone.
Totally.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Totally. Yeah. I actually had another huge thing that helped me get through just the surgery itself. It's funny how things work, but a friend was like, you must meet someone that just had the surgery a year ago. Weirdly enough, we had surgery on the same date, 1 year apart. She's about like 10 or 12 years younger than me, you know, just completely different. She actually did all this postpartum. So, I mean, you know, then I'm like, how on earth did you do that with a kid like in tow? But I had the same surgery, like mine at 13 plus this. And so she was the reminder to me I didn't even know I needed. Like, it'll end, and then this is the next step to expect. And then we all need those coaches. Like, and when you can find somebody that's been at least in your shoes to some degree, it's so helpful. So that is why I kind of get on social media and post. Like, I get in phases where I'm working less and charting less. And so I get this creative writing thing going on. And I get just like, people need to know, you know, like it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but also like to have your hope, like, you know, because those are the connections I value with my patients so much, just the realness of life. Because yeah, that in the exam room, people tell me everything. And the truth is every woman is self-conscious and beats themselves up about their family, their work, their body, just all we all do it. The most beautiful woman in the room, you know, has the same thoughts as the rest of us. And it's always something different we all focus on. And so that's, I think, helpful. It's helpful to know. You can look at it sad, like, gosh, all these women think that, or you can spin the positive on it. Like, we all have this in common. We all just need to lift each other up. Like, because one of us is always struggling and is part of this sisterhood of, you know, like
Yeah. Well,
women is
that's
pulling each
happened.
other along. Like, yeah.
That's happened for me with when I went perimenopause. It wasn't a
Yeah.
conversation yet. So this was like 14 years ago. And I can
Mm-hmm.
remember feeling so alone because nobody was having
Yeah,
the conversations. People weren't talking about what they were dealing with. Nobody, it was hush
yeah,
hush, nobody said anything. And
absolutely.
now to see on social where
My,
it
how it's
is
changed. Yeah.
right, it
Mm-hmm.
is the conversation, and it's like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, if I had somebody tell me then
Right.
that this was like women were
Mm-hmm.
battling this, it wasn't just me on an island, like that would have
Right.
helped me so much then
Right.
because it has
Right.
helped me so much now,
Yeah.
even postmenopausal.
Totally.
So like I'm so
Totally.
appreciative.
Divorce is like that, finding when I found my divorced girlfriends that could kind of really get at other people, and me too, I can be empathetic with different problems. But if I haven't had a specific thing, it's hard for me to be in the exact shoes. I do my best, but just like, I mean, men can be great gynecologists, but women say all the time, like, they haven't had a period. They don't, I'm like, this is true, like they can watch their wives or daughters or whatever, but like, it is different when and that connection with people is very important, I think. So,
We
yeah.
all need we all need that. Well,
Mm.
I'm gonna jump into like this other thing that's kind of this is like the fun part of like because I feel like this challenge is what has thrust you into this Miss Health and Fitness, cover of a magazine challenge. So kind of tell like
What the
what
heck?
inspired
Yeah.
you because that was the message I got. You're like, Seal, I'm doing this. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on?
Well,
So
I'm
talk
like,
about
you're
that.
all over social media posting your strength. Help me. I just accidentally did this. Like, and now I don't know what to do. Um, yeah, like most of us, I scroll my phone also. And I think it was after a day where I was just thinking about my girlfriends, what I was talking about earlier, just how much women beat themselves up. And I think I was just on my soapbox of like, God, women are so hard on themselves. And thinking I've thought about my mom a lot with losing her, and I've posted about this, but like my mom did not criticize my appearance. And I've learned in knowing other people, friends, patients, moms and daughters coming in, a lot of moms are not like that. They critique their daughter, they see them as a reflection of themselves, and then that sets up some sort of image issues, no pressure on moms, but like we're all guilty of criticizing our children, like trying to make them better. But like for women, I think in particular, their bodies, like that's a line that's, once crossed can have lasting impacts. Not that it all comes from there, but I have not picked my body apart in my life. I mean, to some degree, we all do. And I was trying to figure out why do I not do that? Because I certainly don't think I'm perfect in any shape, form, or fashion. But I think it came from her, and realizing a lot of people don't have that, but maybe get it from other people. And then I'm scrolling, maybe that's on my mind. I'm seeing some posts related to such. And then this Miss Health and Fitness crosses my feed. And, I stop and I'm like, well, what if I just did that, like, and just show people my like imperfect body out there that's been through. I got all these scars now. Now I've got more from this surgery on my side, on my hip, on my back. Like, I've been told scars are cool by men, like, whatever. But yeah, like just that nature of imperfection, I think, and that strength doesn't have to look a certain way. There's certainly your stereotypical sort of female muscles and every like last one that are my quote competitors, that I do not look like that. I do not have a six pack. My spine won't bend. I can't crunch. I probably could never have one. Like, so, but it's fine. It is fine. I got to a point, even with a bigger fusion before this one, where like I felt very strong and very confident in a completely different way than the way I looked in my 20s, but in my early 40s, just with the effort I put in just for me to feel the way I wanted to feel. And so I'm like, if I could get that message across in some way, even if I just post as this little competition comes along, like that feels meaningful. I also tend to do stuff like this when I'm not working. So it tells you I should be working, or I get myself into things like this. So here I am, in a group that's been narrowed with like a few more rounds. And yeah, sure, vote for me, please. Like, yeah, there's some,
I was gonna say, so how do we do
yeah,
that? Tell everyone how, like, how do we do
yeah.
that?
So it's through Facebook, and I know our generation still has Facebook, but a lot of the younger ones are Instagram, or people just aren't on social media. So unless you're willing to create a Facebook account, I don't think there's a way to do it. But those of you that have one, it's pretty easy to find me. I'm just Heather Graham, MD. I started doing this in 2022 when I left my OBGYN job doing OB to go to GYN, just kind of posting and writing about women's health issues. So that's my account. It's Heather Graham, MD on either Instagram or Facebook. Instagram will sort of link to it. I got it in my profile.
And
For
I'll
this
and I'll
Miss
drop
Health
the
and Fitness.
yes,
Yeah.
and I'll drop the link so they know how to do
Yeah.
it. Because
But
like
it's daily votes, yeah, that like kind of accumulate. This upcoming Thursday is when the group started. There were like 30,000 people in this thing. And then from what I understand, lots of groups, and then the groups get narrowed down to one person. Then those people get reset in groups for like some finals rounds that happen pretty quickly. So I've somehow managed with the love and support of my female crew, like to
that's
find
awesome.
myself like at the top of my group for a while. And so I've made it through these initial rounds, and then it narrows down to like the top in the group on Thursday. And so every day voting accumulates like sort of, and so there's charitable donations that go toward this really cool foundation called Be Positive. Like I'm always a little suspicious of that stuff too, but have looked into it. And it's just the coolest thing. I won't go into all of it, but it does deserve a mention. I mean, it's a kiddo from, I believe it's Delaware, named Andrew, got diagnosed with leukemia suddenly, was an athlete, like literally taken from the soccer field to the hospital and never left. And two, the B positive, it's like the B plus, that was his blood type, but then B positive, being positive about life. So his story, almost his mom has written, like in retrospect after his death, it's like he almost stayed alive to prepare his family for him leaving, like as a teenager, like a kid. And so the inspiration, and this was a long time ago, like that's carried on. Colleges do dance-a-thons like for it. Like it's just really cool. There's lots of marathons. And so Miss Health and Fitness, you can make a donation for the person that's running, and then it gets you more votes. But like it really goes towards this really cool foundation, like in support of childhood cancer research. Like pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, I was so inspired because your story and knowing you, like I said, I met you back in 2020, and you were such a bright and positive like light when we first met, and then to see what you've gone through, and then to have this conversation with you, and you still like you are so resilient and you are so strong.
Oh, thank
Like,
you. Yeah.
I think for
That
anyone that
means a
has
lot.
yeah, well, anyone that's faced the challenges you have and then to throw yourself into the competition like that, I just, I loved it. I loved what you posted. I loved your photo that you have of you and your boys. I love the fact that you shared your story. And that to me was like, that's everything. And that is
Oh,
such
yeah.
it's such an incredible,
Strength looks very different, like I
yeah.
said, my mom, the opposite of physical strength, was one of the strongest, maybe the strongest person I've ever known, like, with what she faced. So it can look very different, health looks different at different stages, fitness looks very different. So yeah, like why not?
Well, and I think it's such a good
Yeah.
reminder to be present, like be present where
Mhm.
you are now. I had to remind myself
Yeah,
that the other day because
absolutely.
it was in the middle of the week and I called my son like the day before and I was like, yo, because he's 26 and he's in
Hmm.
Charlotte. So I was like, hey, let's go run. And
Yeah,
he texted me, he's like, Mom, are you sure this is a good time for you? Because he was off that day. And I said, I'm going to make it a good time. Like, I'm just going to
right,
do it
right.
because
Yeah.
my goal this year was to be more present. And so
Uh-huh.
if I'm in that moment, I'm in that moment.
Yeah,
And I think
right.
everything you've talked about today goes right back to
Hmm.
that is like,
Yeah,
take the time to be present, take the time for
yeah,
yourself,
totally.
surround yourself with good people. Um,
Uh-huh.
those are the things I think that will keep you.
Those are the things that keep you young, I guess, in an age of where we're trying to fight aging, but like
Yes.
aging's beautiful in some ways too, because I don't know, like me, I had been through a spine surgery before. I had been through some challenges. So in some ways that did make it easier, even on an older body going through like healing, but
Yeah.
because you've healed in other ways too. But yeah, we're just never going to be perfect. We're going to be not present, and then we're going to beat ourselves up. We just have to stop it when we do that. Remember, we're human, like,
Right.
so we can only
Bottom
do so
line.
much. Sometimes you just have to stop, like, just and
Well, tell me,
regroup, like,
what's the one, like, what's a goal for you this year
mhm,
physically? So talk about,
yeah,
like, do you have
that's
a
a
set
great
goal for
question.
yourself?
Yeah, I think it was probably already something I was, you have those festering ideas like I need to be doing this, and I hate the word need. It's more want, like because need is very little in life. Like we really don't need that much, um but wanted to take a different approach to fitness. I was like most people very much of the I either can work out an hour or I won't do it or it's not worth anything. And as we age, particularly, and our bodies don't cooperate, you get the flu in the winter, whatever happens and derails your normal routine. How do you make that fit, and in the context of busy life, a parent gets sick, just how do you keep it up? And I think it's like we have to get rid of the all or nothing approach. Me for sure, like that's how I've approached fitness up until now, and then this just wiped me off my feet literally. So it's like, okay, I may stop for 5 minutes and do something. When I can stop for 5 minutes and hold a plank later, when I can build up strength to do that, I'm going to do it now. Where I used to be like, well, that won't do anything. But it is cumulatively how much you build up. I think those things on days where it does not look like an hour to go run with your kid, and that can be applied to anything where you're trying to be present. But certainly, for me, my goal is like with fitness and what that looks like is just to stop the all or nothing, like, which is what I think keeps us from ever starting too.
It
So,
does. I think a lot of
yeah.
people think that they have to do the 30. If I don't get a 30 minutes in, then I'm not
Hmm.
going to do it at all. Like you just said
Yeah.
it. Like we box ourselves in, and
Hmm.
we don't have to. I've had to break a lot of old traditional
Yeah.
fitness habits that I had for the
Yeah.
longest time and have had to rewire. Like you have to literally
Hmm.
rewire how
You
you see
do.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to be said, and one thing I did right in my 40s when from a career change, I wasn't taking crazy call anymore, and just life was a little calmer from a professional sense. My kids were kind of stepping into the busy sports time and being shipped everywhere, the Uber phase of momhood where you're driving everywhere. But to prioritize myself, which was something I hadn't. So I didn't work on Mondays for the longest time. Monday mornings were mine. I went and strength trained like with someone. I'll give a shout out to Courtney, like that
Oh,
well. Um,
yes.
in Huntersville. Yeah, so I started training with her because I'd met her through you. That was another connection.
Oh my
I'm
gosh, I
like,
didn't realize that.
I
That's
met her through
awesome.
you at that same event where I was wearing a wetsuit, like because I was like, my body doesn't look good enough to be in shorts and a sports bra, so I will wear a wetsuit and still show fitness, like with my mom bod.
Totally rocked that. You totally rocked that.
um, it was hot. It was hot, I'll say. That was a special choice, black in July or something, I think it was. But uh yeah, so kind of lost train of thought there with
No,
menopause
it's
brain belt,
okay. Well,
but
I'm just, I
yeah.
just, well, all the goals you have for yourself with the fitness,
Yeah.
what you want to do moving forward, like in this next year,
Yeah.
I
Blocking
think,
out time was what, yeah, I
yes,
was just saying I had purposely blocked out time, gave that to myself. One thing in divorce is there are some nights you don't have your children and you can sit around missing them and you maybe do it for a little bit and then you get yourself up and go do something you were missing out on doing for yourself, which for me then became hot yoga, and was awesome. Like, and I'll probably get back into that at some point. I can tolerate some portion of it again, but it's blocking out time, but then not the all or nothing either. It's a mixture.
I
At
think that's
least
a
that's where I think it lies at this point. I certainly don't have all the answers, but
no, but I think that's a great message. It just
yeah.
continues on. Like, I think that's the biggest thing with women is like taking it, just making time for yourself, whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes out of the day, 20, 30, whatever,
Absolutely.
like whatever.
Absolutely.
Everybody's,
Yeah.
your life goes in seasons, like you had talked about earlier. And we just have,
Mm-hmm.
if we learn to flow with that, that will relieve a lot of the stress that we put on
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. And I
Yeah.
love your viewpoint on women's bodies and like appreciating where you are,
Yeah.
appreciating what you've done, what you've been through, the
Mm-hmm.
season you're in. I think we all have seasons where we can push and we all have seasons where we have to like focus on something
Right.
else because it takes priority. But like just knowing like just take a little bit
That's
of time
okay.
for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
one last thing would you like to leave with everyone as far as like today, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
rounding out our conversation? Is there anything else that you want to, as far as a message leaving with everyone?
Yeah. I think just look how to raise up your fellow woman, around you. I think as we've talked about people doing that for us, like you underscore the importance of the impact you can have in other people's lives when you think, well, I don't have anything to offer advice, but it's very valuable to those younger than you, but sometimes younger people with older people. There's certainly been, like I described, the person that helped me with my surgery is younger than me. And so, it just, you can be intimidated by other people, but not realize how much, like, your voice matters. Like, just being kind. Like, we just get wrapped up sometimes in the fast pacedness of life and forget to just sort of lift up our fellow woman. Like,
Love
so
that.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, I so appreciate you being on today and like us
Yeah.
sharing your
Thanks
story
for
because
having me.
I just feel like it's so important. Like your message is very clear in what you wrote. And I was like, oh, we have to talk because like I
Yeah.
think this is one that we can put out there and hopefully not
Yeah.
only get you some more votes, but also like share the
Yeah.
story and hopefully
Most
it encourages
importantly,
someone else.
yes. And maybe I can throw you in a sailboat with me and we can talk
I
some
would love
more.
that.
Yeah, because I know you like the water too.
I'm down. Let's
I just got to
go.
get back into it and, make
Yeah.
sure I won't drown us both. But, so
Down for that.
I'm not a strong swimmer. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on. Thank you so much for listening to the Be Amazing podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to someone who inspires you so they can feel amazing too. If you want to help us reach new listeners, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, you can find the video versions of our episodes on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at the Be Amazing Podcast or DM me at Seal Smart. I'll see you in the next episode.